Hello, After Darkest. This is your host, KingStevenJ. I don't have my co-host with me, Chrissy, but she's here in spirit. Today is going to be something different. We're going to be talking about marriage, the importance of marriage, how to stay married when fighting and married, and then on top of that, we're going to talk about divorce, and we're going to talk about being a widow. I mean, we have 12 years of marriage here, and we have 35 years of marriage. So I think we have a wealth of knowledge in front of us, and I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about. So today, I have my guest grandmother, Ernie Jenkins.
Hi.
I got my uncle Dex,
Hello, everybody. Hello, After Darkers.
and I have my auntie.
Hey, everybody.
And then in the distance, I have another family member, Nicole, that's going to be talking to us. We're doing the COVID edition. So with that being said is we're in the house, and this is going to be, like I said, something totally different. All right, so Nicole, if you want to pitch in, you can from a distance. All right? So let's get this started. The importance of marriage. Why do we want people to get married? Why do people get married?
Well, I think getting married is all the way back to the beginning of Genesis, because when man was created, God looked at us and said it wasn't good for man to be by himself. You know, you got to think about it. He had all these animals, and the animals had someone that they were connected to. They had a male perspective and they had a female perspective. But the man didn't have anybody. So at that point, the monkeys were starting to look good. You know, they were upright like he was. He was like, what's going on? I need somebody as well. So he put him to sleep and he made Eve. So it was his master plan that we would never be by ourselves. Sexuality and marriage has been there from the beginning.
Okay.
Real quick for me, I've always felt that the importance of marriage and staying married, you learn all your societal cues in a marriage. So that's why I think, for me, the importance of marriage is, and what I mean by societal cues are a mother and a father raising children. The children in the home learn how to behave in society. They learn moral rules that belong in society. There are just things that are learned in a family dynamic. So when the children leave the home, they will already have those things, how to function in society. It's almost like the family unit. People learn how to govern themselves in a family unit, and if it's a strong family, if they learn how to govern themselves in the family, then they will learn how to govern themselves in society.
Okay.
That's good. Going back to what Mom said, I think we are created to be communal, and so be in relationship with each other. And I think if you look at it from the biblical standpoint, it's supposed to be a picture of, when we get married, a picture of Jesus and the church. And then it is to be in relationship, and it's for companionship. And so that's what I've got so far.
I know with me, just with dealing with friends and just to take it to the way of the world, I see that most people getting married, well, I'm not going to say most people, but people getting married to me is because that's their next step in their relationship. They're either in love, they're either growing together as a unit, so they created a structure, now they're building their structure. They're starting a family, so they want to incorporate the marriage within the family. But then you have a group of people that get married because, like, maybe, you know, they were in an argument and that was like the last result of saving a marriage, so they just get married due to the fact that they feel as though this is the last thing that can help my relationship. Like, if I get married, then we're pretty much going to save face here. So I want to include that in as well, because I might have, we might have some listeners that say, well, that's the reason why I got married, is because that was like the last result.
Absolutely.
And I think that, what was that? An ultimatum, exactly. And I tell people, when you're getting married, you have to create your pros and cons list. And you should do that in the beginning of the relationship, throughout the relationship. Possibly like every 2 years, if you wait that long. It's very important to know what you're looking for out of the relationship. But then it's also very important to get the biblical scripture and the biblical counseling at the same time, because you want to know that balance as well. But it's just for the individuals that just get married just because to save face.
So you said two things. You said ultimatum, and then you said save face. And my experience in my first marriage was the saving face.
Yeah.
Because I knew it wasn't something that I should have done or was supposed to do. But it's like how we done planned this thing, and we're so close to saying I do. And, how do I go back and say, y'all, this is really not the right thing to do? How do you potentially run the risk of hearing from your family? See, I told you.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then you enter into something that you're not supposed to, because you're afraid of being embarrassed, or you want to try to preserve something. And so I think my position in hindsight on that is, if you're doing it as an ultimatum, anytime you have to give somebody an ultimatum to do something, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this, it's not going to work. And anytime you're marrying for any reason other than to build a life with somebody, it's not going to work. And that was my experience the first time around. I flat out knew I wasn't supposed to, but didn't want to admit that my family could have been right and that I was wrong.
Yeah, it's crazy to me because I see, like, as we grow and we get older, more mature, we can then acknowledge things versus like when we're younger and we're in the entry of things. Like now I can admit, like, you're not the right person for me. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Hindsight is 20/20. That's what they say.
Yeah.
And it's like we can always see things in hindsight. So I think for me, the difference the second time around was, and I was talking to my best friend about this today, was just that I refused to do it any other way than God's way. And that's not to say that Dex and I did it right or perfectly, but I did not want to choose anyone that God didn't want from me, because in the first time around I had my list. He had to be this height, he had to be this skin complexion, because I historically was attracted to dark-skinned men. He had to be upwardly mobile. He had to be the picture of what I thought success would look like. But nowhere in all that list was having a heart for God. Nowhere in that list was having integrity or character, and then there are the other tangible things like, okay, does he have good credit, and things like that. All that ties into it, and none of that was, I had a very foolish mindset the first time around. And so the second time around, I had just decided, if God don't show me who it is, I'm not going to do it. And then he showed me who it was, and I was like, God, are you sure? Because it didn't still fit my mental picture.
Yeah.
But, almost 11, 12 years in, it's like he was everything that I did not know that I needed.
And you know what's crazy? I talked to Chrissy, my sister, about this, and I actually got a list.
Just real quick, I just kind of felt like I'm a project over here, so.
You are not a project, baby. I love
Sounded
you.
like I was a project, but go ahead and continue, sir. After Darkers,
you were perfect.
After Darkers, do me a favor, poll. If you think I just sounded like a project, make sure you let Steven know, hey, that brother sounded like he was a project.
You were supposed to sound like you were perfection. That's what you were supposed
but no, what
to
I was
sound
saying
like.
is, just like Andrea, I created a list, and with that list, it's crazy because hearing her, what she's saying, that it might not come out the way that you want it to. It's just like you automatically know what you want, and it's like you're still not gonna find the person that you might be attracted to or might like. So at the end of the day, you're just gonna let go and just let it happen.
For me, that's exactly what happened. I mean, like my daughter said, you had to be a professional person and you had to be a dark-skinned brother. Well, I was like that too. I wanted a dark-skinned man. He had to be like 6'2", 185 pounds.
Dang,
I had it all listed out, what I expected.
Yeah.
The thing of the fact was, I didn't allow God to give me what he had for me. Because in Proverbs it says, a man finds a good wife. It don't say it found a good woman.
Finds a good wife.
The man who finds
Women
a wife
are the
finds a
gift
good
to
thing.
men. We are so busy out there churning the fields, battling each other over a man, that we fail to sit back and take store and have pride enough in ourselves
Self-love.
so he can sit back and so we can sit back so that man can be placed in front of us. If we have a bunch of baggage, why we want to bring somebody else in our baggage if we're not ready for the marriage?
I honestly think that Grandma just said something that gave me
She did.
goosebumps. And that's what you hear all the time. A woman will make a man so much better. And that ties along with it. It kind of gave me goosebumps. So is it right to say you're not with the right one if you still feel held down? Or is that just the wrong mindset to have?
Or held back?
Or
Well,
held back?
let's clarify. When you say, I'm not going to answer the question. I want to clarify the question. When you say if you're not with the right one, are we talking about married or are we talking about not married?
Relationship wise, because you want to know the start before you get to the middle of the situation.
So you're saying before you get married?
Yeah.
So the issue I have with before you get married, if we overthink the before you get married too much, some of us will never get married.
Yeah.
Because so after darkness,
Keep it real, babe.
me and Andrea were married 1 week.
Why you gotta be putting me out there like that?
No,
Hey,
it's just,
we keep it real on this show, by the way.
Yes.
And I came home from work, and I work a non-traditional job, and we're both remarried. So to give a little background real quick, so we're both remarried, and we both brought our children, our birth children, into the marriage, and we both had custody of our children. So,
Hello, After Darkers. King Steven here with a quick commercial. If you like our content and you want to support the After Dark Talk podcast, become a member today by visiting www.patreon.com/AfterDarkTalk. We offer 2 memberships. The first membership is the After Dark Lite, which gives you access to bonus audio content and access to weekly ad-free episodes. Our second membership is by far the best. It's the After Dark Heavy, which gives you bonus episodes, early access to the episodes, fan requests, and etc. Become a member today by visiting us at www.patreon.com/AfterDarkTalk.
It was very quickly into the marriage because I was like, I'm tapped out. This is too much. Like, this ain't what I signed up for.
You did better than me. We got married one day, I left the next.
so I got the divorce papers on the bed, and I saw the divorce papers. Now, let's say that didn't go through because here we are. How many years, babe?
We got married in 2009, so I can't count. It'll be 11 in July. I just feel like
said
it's been a
12 earlier,
lifetime.
low-key.
Yeah, I just said I can't count. I can't count. I was over here on
And
my
cut her
fingers, y'all.
And cut her eyes at me too.
Right? Like you
No.
was wrong.
That's because you said 10. I knew it wasn't 10 because I know we made double digits last.
Hello, After Darkers. King Steven here with a quick commercial. Do you own a small or large business and want to advertise your business? Contact us today at AfterDarkTalkPodcast@gmail.com or give us a call at 972-850-8004 and ask us about our advertising specials.
And hear me, I'm not saying don't think about it. There's a lot of things I have to say about what people really should do before they get married. But if you think about it too much, you won't know what you have 10 years down the road, or in the case of Ma over here, 45 years down the road.
Right.
Oh, sorry. I said 35 earlier. It was 45.
45,
Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry about that.
A whole lifetime.
So two things. You talked about your original question was before you get married, feeling like someone has held you down.
Yeah.
And so I look at it from a different perspective because for me, again, the second time around, my sole focus was, is God saying that this is the one for me? And if God is saying that this is the one for me, there was no feeling held down. It was like, if God is saying this is it, this is it. But as evidenced by the fact that my husband just blasted me, we still have issues in the marriage. So just even when God says this is the one, that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. And we both, back to what Mom was saying, came with our own set of baggage, our own residue from the first marriages. So for me, it wasn't necessarily about being held down. I did want someone, I wanted first and foremost who God wanted for me, but I wanted someone who did support me. I wanted someone who believed in me. I wanted someone who championed me, who loved me, who made me laugh. who complimented me, but I also didn't want somebody who was going to sugarcoat things or just tell me what I wanted to hear. So sometimes that being held down can mask itself if somebody loves you enough to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So that's a fine balance. And so for me, the focus was never about how he made me feel in that respect. It was about what God said. And if at any point he ever said anything that I didn't agree with or that made me feel some kind of way, I had to process that for me through the filter of, what does God say about this? And then going back to, Dexter saying one weekend with the divorce papers, we came with our own set of baggage. And so, even doing it God's way still presents itself with its own issues, because we're still doing life.
Yeah.
We were still blending families. I had an adult daughter who was out of the house, but I also had, when we got married, a 5-year-old son. He came with 3 children who, I think Lena was in 4th grade, so Henry and Lena were they were in middle school, and Ayana was going into high school. It came with its own set of baggage, and I want to clarify the thing about the divorce, because we really weren't, let me not speak for Dex. I still had baggage. I still had residue. I still came with my own set of issues and triggers. And so I had to work through that even as we got married. I don't necessarily say that people should, but you're not going to come into a marriage whole. So I did come with my own set of stuff, and things would set me off. And then I had gotten used to living alone.
Yeah.
And to having one child in the house. And so overnight, I went from just me and Marcus to me and Dex and Marcus and 3 other children, and it's like, whoa, this is a lot.
0 to 70.
Yeah.
Overnight. So
Yeah.
what you're going to do. And so those are the things you have to consider, especially when you're coming with children and being remarried. Just a funny story about that. Marcus was so used to it just being me and him, and he was cool with me marrying Dex.
Yeah.
But they actually ended up moving into the home that I was currently in. And so Marcus was walking through the house, and he's like, okay, so Henry can sleep in my room, and Ayana and Lena can sleep in what was at the time, he's like, they can sleep in my playroom. That's what they're going to sleep, and I'm going to sleep in the bed with you. Where's Mr. Dexter going to sleep?
Oh, Lord.
And I was like, that's not quite how that works, babe.
On the
But we
couch.
still had to factor all of that in. I'm like, no, you and Henry are going to sleep in your room. Ayana and Lena, that is now their room. That's no longer your playroom. And then Dexter and I are going to sleep in our room and in our bed. So it was a whole lot of stuff, and it was too much for me. And I was still relying on old tactics to kind of get my way. So the divorce really wasn't necessarily because I wanted to get divorced. It was because I felt like this is a lot.
Yeah.
And he does have a non-traditional job. So I felt like I went from being a single mom to 1 child to now I'm like, I'm a single mom to 4 kids.
Yeah.
And my husband ain't never home. And what am I going to do? And so it was almost like, let's just call it what it was. It was manipulation.
Yeah.
It was to get his attention and say, this is a lot, and we're going to have to figure something out and figure it out quickly. But what are we going to do? And so anytime I got mad, probably for the first year, definitely, if not longer, I was the one like, okay, well, I'm done. I want a divorce.
Yeah. Which is
And-
definitely not the way to go. I've learned that
It is
threatening
not.
your partner and saying that you're going to leave, or I was told that it's not only is it abusive, but it's being verbally abusive, and then on top of
And
that,
it's emotionally
yeah.
manipulative.
Exactly.
And I kept doing that. And so the thing about Dexter, which is why I know he's perfect for me, is he just loved me through all of my foolishness. And I actually had a revelation from God. One of the times that I did it, God was like, okay, so you're going to do this. And what are you going to do if he ever signs them?
Yeah.
So you need to stop playing like that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to chase away what I said for you is one of your greatest blessings.
Wow.
And if you and not just necessarily chase away and make him leave, because you can leave and still be at home.
Yeah.
So whether either he was going to check out because I was going to shut him down with all of that foolishness, or he was going to pack his bags and leave, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted things to change. I wanted us to work through blending the family and whatever the issues are. But that's the reality when you start throwing stuff out there to try to make somebody do something or manipulate somebody. And it's almost like what we said, the ultimatum. If you don't do this, then I'm going to do this.
So, back to your original question about being ultimatum and people getting together. So, what Andrea spoke about was the one thing that kept her grounded was God. So her foundation, her platform was what God was speaking to her heart. My question is, to your question was, so if the ultimatum is the reason for the marriage, what if somebody gives up on the ultimatum? What if the ultimatum no longer speaks to that person's heart, or they don't find value in the ultimatum?
Back into basically doing what you want.
What if I like this person so much? And are your After Darkers a mature audience?
Yes.
What if the sex is that good that you get married? Well, sex changes in a marriage as you age.
Yes, it does.
The needs change, the wants change. I mean, it's all great when you're young. And,
Even the
hear
desire
me.
changes.
Hear me. I have a very loving relationship with my wife, so I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, for people, that it changes. When those things, if that's your foundation, and it changes, then of course you're going to be like, okay, I need to separate, or I need to divorce.
You know, that's very true. And I mean, I was married 45 years, okay? When we first got married, we were like little rabbits running around the house.
Yeah.
And then we got to be, okay, Andrea, stop moaning.
I don't want to know my mama like that, y'all.
We got to be a little bit older. The children got older, and they were more aware of what was going on around them, so we had to be a little more discreet. And as we went through the various stages of having teenagers and their issues, and then having young adults and having grandchildren, and going through these whole motions, by the time that we got to be in our 60s, my husband got very ill. So
Yeah.
it wasn't the fact of even having sex. It was a fact of, thank God we had the relationship that we did have that would keep us grounded and rooted and bonded together. Because you may get to a point in your marriage where that is no longer applicable.
Yeah.
So, like you said, what do you have left if the only thing you got married for was because of the sex? You have to build something else into that marriage that bonds you together.
Or because she fine. I got married because she
Right,
fine or
because
he
she's
fine
fine,
because
he's fine.
That's
things
the wrong
start
thing to do, get
He
married because
got
somebody
X
fine.
amount of
Come
dollars,
on.
you know.
Things
So
start
that
sagging,
stuff
things change,
doesn't last
position,
always.
money goes away. So.
Life happens to you.
Yeah, surgery. I'm just joking.
You said surgery? I mean, it's an option if you got the money for it.
So we got a question right here. Just to ask you two right here, Dexter and Andrea. Jessica asked, if since they both experienced a divorce, if that idea of it was comfortable because they knew it was possible to be alone, speaking about the divorce.
If the idea the second time around of getting
Yes.
divorced?
It was just to be alone. Was that she's asking basically, was that the contributing factor to some of your reasons of having divorce papers on the bed? Just
No, so it was,
Can I know you put the divorce papers, but so she explained to me why the papers were on the bed, and the papers were on the bed because it was like she already mentioned it. She went from one lifestyle to another, which was not her expectation. Her expectation was totally
we got to
different.
talk about expectations.
Her expectation was totally different. She knew we were blending the family. I knew we were blending the family. But we just didn't talk about it enough. And we didn't think through it enough. We probably still would have got married, but had we just talked about it more, about what that looked like with my non-traditional job, I'm working 50 hours a week. Coming home
Or
at
more.
12, 11 o'clock at night,
Or
midnight.
later.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, because of things that happened in my previous marriage, okay, where you been and what you doing? Because ain't nobody working that late. What we doing that late? I used to always hear from my mama at 2 a.m, ain't nothing open but like a 7-Eleven in somebody's legs, if we keeping it real. So you really can't be at work that late, can you?
So my question is not.
Well, I do want to answer the other question. So
Okay.
keep your question. So it was
How
about,
are you going to tell the host what to do?
because you jumped in and answered my
This is
question. The
my
question
show,
was
right?
directed at me, my love.
Andre and Dexter.
Aaron,
No,
what
it's
did you say
message.
the other day when we was talking about if you want to call somebody a name, but you tack on "I love you"?
Oh Lord, Jesus Christ.
So, so a couple of things. It was a manipulation tactic, but I think my mindset really was because I remember saying this to myself. Look, okay, I didn't get married for all of this.
Okay.
And I know that I did it alone before, so it's not necessarily that I wanted to be alone, but I was like, I can take care of myself. You know that old saying, I can do bad all by myself. So
more
I really
of an
don't.
independent type.
And
Okay.
I did struggle with that
Yeah.
because, you know, we don't even want to talk about the S word, submission, but I was like, I can do all of this all by myself. But this is what I could do it, and I did it. I did it. I raised one child alone. I can raise this one alone. I can do it by myself. I don't need all of this. And so that was a part of the mindset. But Dex said something important, expectations. And then I don't even think talking about things more in advance would have changed it, because we all have a very good idea of how things are going to go, but experience versus expectation or explanation are two completely different things. I can have an idea in my mind, but actually living that thing out, you never can prepare for everything. So we thought, okay, we're going to blend families, and it's not going to be easy, but we got the word of God, we got each other, we're equipped, the kids like each other, we're going to be good. And y'all know some of what we went through in the early years of our marriage, not just Dexter and I, but with the kids.
Yeah.
So that all was like a wake-up call. So for me, even had we talked about it, I still think I would have been shook, because living it out is a whole nother thing that you cannot plan for and prepare for and everything. But then that leads to the other thing that he talked about, which is expectations. And that's something that we learned about through our pastors, and I thank God for them, because we didn't realize that we had unmet expectations, but neither he nor I had talked about what our expectations were. And so it is unfair for me to have an expectation for him to behave a certain way, do a certain thing that he first of all doesn't even know about the expectation, and he hasn't even had the opportunity to say whether or not he agrees to the expectation. So a lot of the failure in relationships is due to unmet expectations. We haven't talked about it, and then we haven't agreed to it. So how can I be mad at him for something that he don't even know, and then say, well, Andrea, I do or don't want to do that?
That comes with you being a single person going into a marriage as well, because you already have this expectation of how you want your marriage to look and how the spouse is supposed to act and how you're supposed to act and be
And then
treated.
life happens.
And then, like you said, life comes at you, and you're like, whoa, and you come up with the attitude, well, I
Y'all,
have to
I'm
deal with
saved, and I
this.
wasn't like, whoa, I was like, WTF, and I said the words, and I still love Jesus.
Well, exactly, but I'm saying, you hit that brick wall and you say either, you cuss about it, you have an argument about it, or you walk away from it. So these are the type of things that my husband and I went through. We were like, I ain't dealing with this. Like I said, when we got married on September 8th. 10 o'clock on September 9th that morning, I took a plane to Las Vegas. Not to get divorced, but my parents were out there, and I went
Okay,
to
I thought you was
go
about to
out
get turned
there
up.
as well,
Because what happens in Vegas stays
You
in
gave
So
me your
there
money,
we
Negro. Yeah, I'm about to spend it all.
No,
Sure.
but my husband had lost his job. That was one of the things we were arguing about. And my father-in-law, God bless his soul, he was like, do you love my son? I was like, yes, sometimes.
But I don't like him some days.
Right, yeah, exactly. I don't like him all the time. And so we went and got the marriage license, and he said, well, I'm tired of y'all. So he called my mother-in-law out of the kitchen, and his brother from practicing on the piano, because he was going to college for a music degree, and he stood us on the back porch and got married. We got married, knowing that I had a ticket in my hand. Well, I'm still taking my ticket and going to Las Vegas. You get yourself together, you can come out there, or you get yourself together, I can come back here. But for right now, I'm still going where I had planned to go. And you knew I was planning to do this. So I'm kind of glad that we took that little separation at the front part, because it was like, made me really think, is this what I truly want? Is this what is supposed to happen? Because I knew that I loved him very, very much. But there are certain things I was not going to play around with. And I think it made him realize who I was. So by the time December came here, right before the new year that year, I sent him a ticket and he came out there. And we worked through a lot of things over the 45 years we got married. But had I had someone in my life back then, a pastor and a pastor's wife could have given me the good, sound, biblical Christian counseling, we could have avoided some of the steps and some of the things we went through.
So I'm glad you said that, because that's the perfect segue what I was thinking. So you talked about, you just mentioned counseling. So counseling, therapy, all those things are valuable. But believe it or not, we get counseling without going to a traditional counselor or a clinical counselor or anything like that. 'Cause we get that when I call my friend up, I'm like, hey, this is what I got going on. Nope, it's counseling.
You gotta listen.
It's counseling.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right counseling.
Okay.
It's counseling.
Okay, that's what I was
You
getting
get
to.
you get counsel. When I call my friend up and I say, hey, this is what I got going on. Yeah, you need to. That's counseling. When I'm on Facebook and I'm going back and forth,
Girl, I wouldn't take that if I was you.
that's counseling. That's counseling. This whole what we're talking about right, it's counseling. So counseling is great. So I'm gonna go back to what we originally talked about, the importance of marriage, about that family unit. All this stuff we're talking about, if we were in a family unit, brought up in a family unit, you know, in a good, healthy, let me talk about a good,
Come on.
healthy family unit, then these things we would have just sat at the feet of our parents and saw how they dealt with adversity, struggles, and so forth. And then as we got older to marriage age or getting married, then a father could take his son and say, son, this is what you do. This is how you behave. This is how you fight. This is how you stand up. This is how you lead. Daughter, the mother's gonna take their daughters, and it could be any parent. This is what you do. This is what you do. So when you get in it, you already have some type of wisdom to fall back on. That it's like my pastor says, you default to your last level of training. You're basically getting trained sitting under foot of your parents. So when those things happen, you have a kind of a mental training. I'm not saying you're going to get it right. You're still going to have adversity. But what's going to happen is you will be more prepared. That's why it's so important to be in a family unit.
But what happens if you grow up and your examples aren't good?
Well, that's why I said beginning healthy.
Right, but
healthy.
I think that is an important thing to talk about, though, right?
It is. And what he said, I think, stands defaulting to your last level of training, good or bad.
Yeah.
Good or bad. And so when you don't have that, I mean, I think the saving grace for Dex and I was that when we got married, because we knew we wanted to do it God's way. And so that's the only thing that I have to go back to, is that we knew that that's what our foundation would be. And so we were very conscious, because we both had baggage, about making sure that we were, I am very particular, and I'm not speaking for my husband, about who speaks into my life concerning my marriage. And I can count on one finger, y'all hear me, ladies hear me, one finger, the people that I talk to about my husband. And it is my pastor's wife, because she is a woman of God, and she is always going to point me back to God. And she is going to be very careful. She's not going to just tell me what I want to hear. She's going to yank my card when it needs to be yanked in love. But so good or bad, you go back to, and that's when the divorce papers, that was my last level of training. That was, at that point, that was my default. Okay, manipulate, or deuces, I'm out, or whatever.
Because that's what you were used to.
That's what I was used to.
Or that was the experience from the past.
Right.
Okay.
And so doing it the second time around, I was smart enough to understand that we were going to have problems, and it wasn't just going to be perfect. And so at each stage of our marriage, it hasn't always been the same one person. Because I shout out to Kim Jones, if she watches that, she was one of the people in our very or listens, I'm sorry, because this is listening. If Kim Jones is listening, she was one in the very beginning stages. She was my one person. And so it has changed as we've grown over these past 11 years, but I am very careful and protective of that, because the last thing I want to do is go to my girlfriend who is divorced and on her third marriage. There's nobody like that that I'm in a relationship. This is an example. She's on her third marriage and divorced, to ask her for advice about what to do with my husband. I'm first and foremost never going to talk to a single person about my and Dexter's relationship. I'm never going to talk to someone who I haven't seen do it successfully. This is just me, and it's no shade to anybody, but if you haven't been successfully married in a healthy God-centered relationship, you cannot talk to me about my marriage or my husband. That's my standard.
So what I'm hearing here, and I think that this is vitally important for the people that's listening. There's two things that I got out of this whole conversation that we just had. Conversations, communication in the beginning, expectations from each other, and then agreeing and disagreeing on what you're going to do and what we're going to, the goal that we're going to reach. I'm not going to say what you're not going to do, but the goal that you're going to reach together to reach common ground on a certain aspect of that.
So let's do this, and let's show you what that looks like. Pick something that, Andre, pick something that we would maybe need to understand the expectation on, whether it's like taking the trash out or washing the dishes. Or,
So choose an expectation
well, it's just something that people can
that they can relate to. Yeah.
So
Let's talk about washing the clothes.
okay, so let's talk about washing the clothes. So laundry. Let's talk about doing laundry. Two people get married. There's laundry to do.
Mm-hmm.
We don't live in the traditional world that we used to live in, so I'm not going to sit here and say it's a woman's job to do laundry.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't live in those days where the wife was allowed. I shouldn't say allowed. That was like, oh, you get to stay
Or the
home.
wife was typically
Boy, you know
responsible.
these after dark is finna get you because it's
ducking.
mostly women. I'm just
ducking.
like,
I'm ducking. I sucked it back down my throat, swallowed it. No, so where back when women had what we call a traditional role of being home and staying home. So let's say I'm a traditional man and I walk in the house and I keep walking by the laundry and I'm waiting for my wife to do the laundry because that's my expectation. And her expectation is like, yeah, I work too, Negro. I'm just saying.
exactly.
So my expectation is you do the laundry or do something. So now we don't have clean clothes and I'm looking at her and she's looking at me and now we're arguing. And now we're calling each other out of names. Now it's like, okay, whatever. I'm going to take my clothes and wash my clothes. I don't care what happens to your clothes. We never talked about the laundry. So what that now looks like is, hey, sweetie, laundry needs to be done. What would your response be?
Are we talking about like Andrea in the early years of our marriage?
Just in general.
You gonna do the laundry?
Why should I do the laundry?
Because you the one with the dirty clothes. I went to Walmart and bought some more panties.
Nasty. 3 weeks of dirty drawers sitting there for no reason, and then spent almost $100 on dirty drawers.
So more realistically, that would look like, okay, the laundry's got to be done. So let's set the expectation. The expectation is either we're going to have an on week, off week, every other week, you'll do the laundry. Now, Andrea or myself could say, I'm not agreeing to that.
Right.
Because just because you set an expectation doesn't mean you're going to agree to it. So I cannot force, and she cannot force me to accept an agreement. But if we understand and agree to the expectation, now I can come back and say, hey, this was your week to do laundry. You didn't do the laundry. Does not give me the right, though, to get upset. I may be able to say, hey, I'm upset at our expectation. Doesn't give me the right now to get angry and curse her out and be mean to her. Guess what? I still have to move in love and grace. I'm just going to go do the laundry and let her know. Go ahead.
So I picked laundry for a very specific reason because more often than not, I actually don't do the laundry. And in the early stages of our marriage, I did because I assumed it was the wife thing to do, and Dexter had a relationship. And what that looked like for us over time was I would do the laundry, and the way I was raised, you had whites, you had darks, you had lights, you had towels. You know, you maybe had a separate load for jeans, depending on how many you did. My husband is very different. He's like, you got your hot whites and your cold whites. You got your lights that might need to be washed and hot, but then I want to wash all the work shirts separate, and then we wash the towels over here. We wash the underwear only in one. I mean, and it was a whole lot. And I'm like, okay, babe, you working 50, 60 hours a week. I'm at home with 4 kids and working. I'm gonna do it this way. So if you don't want me to do it this way, then you need to wash your clothes. And he was like, okay, cool. And when I tell you, he would wash the clothes his way, and our clothes lasted and looked so much better than the way I wash clothes. So over 11 years, I have adopted his way of washing, and typically now it's more of a tandem. If I get to it, I get to it. If he gets to it, he gets to it. But I say that because traditionally you would think the wife would wash the clothes.
Yeah.
But not only was he the one that was doing it for me and 4 kids, but he was like doing it really well and like
I think
taught
I
me
need
some
to.
things.
I think I need to adopt that same thing because my white clothes, they all wash with the same white clothes, but they ain't, you know.
It was a whole thing, and it was too much for my overwhelmed mind. 'Cause I'm like, I'm trying to take care of 4 kids and run one the band and one the football and another the drill team. And what? I'm trying to watch as many low or as little lows as possible. But he was. We talked about the expectations,
So-
and I was like, if you don't like it, so if I watch, this is how I'm gonna do it. If you want something different, you're free to do it. And he was like, cool.
So expectations in the beginning of the relationship,
Throughout
the relationship,
'Cause they change.
and then at the same time having an understanding that even though you do have expectations, they might not go with according to plan, but at least you have some kind of ground structure that you can always go back to.
Absolutely.
And because I know that, and this is me being completely transparent, throughout my past relationships. I really came home and just like took a shower and sat on the couch, not knowing what my other half at the time has went throughout her day, and just having this conversation with you two or with you three is waking me up, to some of the selfishness that I had that I should have been like, you know what, let me go ahead and clean. Now my cleaning is not as detailed as what that person cleaning was per se. But I mean, I can get down. I mean, it ain't gonna be like the nicks and the crannies.
But that's also the other point that I wanted to make is in doing that, one of the things that Dexter and I had to learn, or let me just, again, speak for me. I had to learn to give him grace to not do it my way. Because when we would do things like clean, whereas he was like, okay, if you want to wash the clothes, you can go ahead and dump them in there. But if you don't, I'm going to do it my way. But I would be like, okay, but you didn't wash the dish the way I wanted to. And you didn't do this the way I wanted to. And it wasn't done. And I'm, okay, he is a different person with a different way of doing things. And I had to learn.
And I'm a grown man.
And he is a grown man. So I had to learn to extend the grace to be like, it doesn't have to be done my way. And to chill out if it wasn't done the way I thought it should be or wasn't done up to my standards. I had to learn to relax and realize, okay, did I want to have a perfect home and a perfect family, or did I want to enjoy my husband and my children and enjoy life?
So seeing your
Well,
partner.
not only do you have to acknowledge, your own imperfections and how you do things or versus how he does things, you also have to praise each other for job well done. And we don't do that enough.
We really don't.
We take for granted, oh, he's gonna take out the trash. Oh, well, she's gonna go to the grocery store. Oh, he's gonna pay the bills on Tuesday. Thank God you have somebody there that's going to do these things for you on a consistent basis and do them well. So we need to give our spouses props for the things that they don't do, that they do. Because believe me, ladies, if you're not out there giving him some praise on what he does do
Somebody
right,
will.
there's somebody else out there that'll start praising him for what he
Where's
does right
Carmelita in
better
the red
than you.
dress? Where's she at in the red dress?
Carmelita gonna get cut.
Yeah, Carmelita gonna be around the corner.
Carmelita gonna get cut. I love Jesus.
So,
Right. He'll cut
so,
her.
so with us talking about marriage, we got to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. So let's talk about the bad now.
Absolutely.
Divorce.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about divorce. Why do you, hearing what you guys say, like we can already, grasp an idea. And guys, sorry for the noise in the background. We are actually doing this at home. This is COVID-19 time, so we ain't in the studio. We're doing this all natural. So you hear food cooking in the background. We got dishes being washed. And we got a dog that's just going around here just acting so lovely and friendly right now. So
surprised he
with
hasn't
all that being
barked.
said, we're going to jump back into this and we're going to talk about divorce. Like, we already see what you guys talked about, during the marriage part, staying married, fighting for marriage. But it's just a certain group of people that just, have that divorce paper on the bed and they just like, you know what, I don't want to hear anything you say. I'm just tapped out. I'm completely done. Like, why do you guys think that it leads to this? Is it the fact that, what Andrea mentioned is that their circle is not strong, or they have an open circle where it needs to be a close-knit circle? What do you guys mind? So let's start with Dex.
So there's way too many reasons for divorce, and I don't even want to really start to pigeonhole that, so to speak, into one. You know, we have a doctor who may be able to speak to that about the reasons for divorce and so forth. And I want to be careful to say that there's an understanding that my previous wife, God loves her, so I don't have anything ill to say about her. God loves her just as much as me. She has her reasons, which are her valid reasons. So I want to be careful to say that, because I'm a believer, and if we're all believers, we cannot sit down and tear somebody down that God loves.
Exactly.
Now, if you're not a believer, come over to the light.
They had a dark cursing the heifer out.
But no, I just want to be careful to say that. So I will say that I, in my first marriage, did not want the divorce. And I want to be mindful, as I recall it, is she just did not, her reason, if I could recall, was I was not the person for her that God wanted. And if I'm wrong, somebody can text me and let me know. But that's my understanding, is that I was not the person that God wanted for her. And this was after 14 years of marriage.
So I mean, like when that was initially brought to you,
I cried like a baby.
I was about to ask you, like, what was your emotion?
I fell down in the feet. Well, you know, so my initial reaction was like I couldn't believe it. And I went into the bathroom, shut the door, lights off, started crying. You know that cry where snot just is coming out your nose and won't break, and it's just like that long trail.
Ew.
That snot crying.
Ugly cry.
Fell down in the fetal position. I'm a grown man on the fetal position crying. Just 14-year marriage. I didn't see it coming. Didn't see it coming at all.
Well, I think, to be fair, though, we have to say that it's not like this was a complete surprise, in that there were issues, and there were struggles, and, you know, there was talk, there had been multiple occurrences of, I want to leave. I want to leave.
My marriage or yours? Oh, well, yeah, so I wouldn't say it's a complete surprise. Yeah, that we did have our ups and downs. I mean, she had left a couple of times, but at this moment when it happened, I didn't see it coming.
It was to me, it was so unique, if I can, you know, kind of recall some of it, is like the fact that, you know, that you were left with your kids.
No.
Or no? Am I wrong?
So when she left this time, the kids went with her.
Oh.
I didn't gain custody until later.
Okay.
So it wasn't she was leaving. She was leaving. Kids were leaving. Everybody left.
And left the state.
Left the state. So that was
Man, that had to hurt.
It hurt, but there's a great beauty. This is a side note. There's a great beauty that came out of this for me, because as I was in my fetal position, I clearly heard God talk to me. He said, "Dexter, I know you're hurting. You're in a lot of pain. There's a lot of tears coming down. Give those tears to me." Initially, I was giving those tears to a lot of misery and a lot of pain, and woe is me. God said, He told me, and I remember this clearly, stand up and lift your hands and cry your tears. Those tears will go unto me, and I will repay you your tears. That's when I became a worshiper. That's why I say the beauty. And it hurt, but it was a beautiful moment, because God, I transitioned to a worshiper then. And I did get repaid.
Hey.
But Alicia's to my left.
But Alicia's.
Yes.
I would honestly say that, you know, for those individuals who are struggling for the mindset of divorce, I am divorced, or basically I am divorced. That's what I put on my W-4 whenever it says that you're single, you're with it, I say I'm divorced. But I know that if I was to do it again, it's something that I wouldn't give in so easily. I think that the most powerful part of that position would have been to fight, and to sit down and talk about it. Even if there was no option to sit down and talk about it, I'll still tell people all the time, even friends that have issues, just to sit there and talk. Even if you're talking by yourself, at least she knows when she has that one pivotal moment in her mind that, you know, I at least want to have a conversation. She knows that you're sitting there at that table as a man. waiting for her to have that conversation and just to communicate. Because that's one thing that some people like. I know that right hand to God, my biggest issue as a man at 35 years old is being consistent. I need to work on that. And I think that within the next, 90 days, I'll be better at it, a lot better. But I just know that when you sign up for marriage, divorce shouldn't be the exit out.
Right.
The exit out is death. Like to do,
Yes.
what was it?
Till death do us part.
To death do us part.
Not murder, y'all.
So I'm glad you're bringing that up because for me, my mantra, and Andrea knows my mantra, is to get through the hard times. I'm a people person, so I will walk up to elderly people, couples that I see, and I would just stop and say, "Hey, my name is Dexter, and I just want to know how." I say, "You two are happily married. Can you give me one? I don't ask for three.
One good pointer.
Just one advice. Sometimes they'll give me advice just to help me get through my marriage. Some communication and some always but a lot of times it lands on, we just got through the hard times."
So let me ask you this question: out of all of the people that you asked, as far as like how to make it through marriage, what was the one best advice that stuck with you and that you actually utilized?
Get through the hard times. Get through the
Yeah.
hard times.
It may not have been said like that, but the gist of what a lot of the couples have said is
Get through the hard
to fight
times.
to get through the hard
Right.
times.
And that's what you just said, Stephen. You said you would fight.
Yeah.
So that triggered that. My remember. Get through the hard times.
And some say talk to each other, which you're talking about
Yeah.
communication. And some say have fun, but overwhelmingly what most people say is life is going to happen and you have to decide in advance that you guys are going to fight to get through the hard times. I think for me, my early on, after I got done with the divorce papers mantra, because even though I realized I need to stop doing this, that didn't mean the mindset wouldn't go. So for me, my mantra early on was divorce is not an option.
So get through the hard times. We're talking like Ma over here married 45 years. People are married 50 years, 60 years. Let's start to think about what they went through. Not this little 10-year-old, 5-year-old, 3-year-old stuff. Some of these couples have lost children. It pains a couple to lose a child before they go. And then to look at their other spouse and say, am I casting blame on you? Why did this happen? Were you the fault? To get through. What about infidelity? Infidelity doesn't happen in young ages. It happens.
It happens,
to get
yeah.
through infidelity. I know if me and Andrea at early on in our marriage, if there was infidelity on my part, deuces. She'd have chucked up the deuces and she would have rolled out.
Because that was my experience in my first marriage. So for me, and going in, back to one of your questions about getting married, I did have a list of non-negotiables. And so my list changed from he's got to be dark, he's got to be well-to-do, he's got to be a certain height, to first and foremost, he has to love God. He has to love
Yes.
Jesus. He has to have a real, vibrant, active relationship with God. Of course, there were things like he needed to be employed and have benefits, but I, at my age, understood that the men that I was going to meet were more than likely not going to be without children. So he had to love his children.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that went into, but for me, it was like, okay, what will I accept in a marriage? And what won't I accept in a marriage? And my non-negotiables were, I cannot accept somebody who doesn't love Jesus. I cannot accept somebody who's a liar. I cannot accept somebody who will cheat on me. Anything
But you got to
else,
be
for the
careful with
most
that
part.
because, like, when you get into new relationships or when you get married, I mean, it's always a two-phase situation leading up to marriage, or even in the first 2 years of marriage. It's like, as a woman, and then as women, and as a man, how would you be able to spot a person that's lying to you? And then how can you be honest with yourself that even though after they got engaged with you, how can you be honest with yourself to say, I can't do this? Because I know there is a plethora of people out there that is dealing with the same situation. They're, I'm engaged and my family is happy. His family is happy, but he's either at home beating me, he's verbally abusive to me, he's cheating on me, he's lying. Like, what advice would you, give to those individuals before divorce is even an option?
How much do you love yourself? even if you're not in a relationship, you have to know who you are. You have to have your own relationship with Christ. You have to know your own values.
Well, let's talk about it from the aspect of people who don't, who are not heavily in the
Right.
church. Because I feel like we're only hold on. I feel like we're only talking about from the view of the church. We're not really giving like really advice. 'Cause, I mean, there's
Even if you are not a church person, you have to have some self-esteem. You have to have something that you think deep down, I am better than this. I don't deserve this.
I don't always think it's that easy, because I think for me, that was a part of it in the first one, which is why I allowed myself to marry someone who I knew wasn't the one for me, and it was because I didn't have a sense of self-worth. But I think for me, it reached a point of enough is enough. And I had, at this point, had a young child with this man, and I didn't want my son to grow up seeing what my daughter grew up seeing. Because there was physical abuse, there was verbal abuse, there was infidelity the first time around. And so some of it did have to do with my value, but I think it's individualized. I don't know that there's any one answer for every one person. I
No,
do
there's not.
think and acknowledge that it is a reality for people.
So would you say that, like if you are experiencing that before, because there's some people that get engaged and they're already thinking about divorce, or they get married and they're automatically thinking about the divorce. So would you say that, self-love and their self-morals would be the most two important things?
I would actually, and I think that is what Mama was saying about having a sense of self-worth. I think that once I realized that I deserved just a little bit better than what I was getting,
It was like a breath of fresh
it was
air.
like, enough.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. How many more times? And let's just keep it real. I was like, if this man want to keep cheating on me and then coming home trying to sleep with me, I could end up with AIDS or worse. And so I was like, yeah, no, okay, I'm done.
Do you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? Like, do you hear that? That's very important right there. Because most people think about, oh, my man slept with somebody else, I can forgive him. It's like, what about
There was that aspect of it, which was, okay, I think I can forgive him, which I couldn't, and I didn't, because it kept happening. But I think for me, one of the wake-up calls was enough is enough, because he's going to bring home something that's going to kill me.
Yeah.
And I got 2 children.
to live for? And most people don't think about it in that aspect.
Exactly.
So in that aspect that we're talking about right now, about what to do pre-marriage or newly married, if there's just these things going on in the home, for a lot of times, it's very difficult to walk away from those type of instances. It's hard. I mean, in the world, people
Saved,
of faith,
unsaved, come on.
it is extremely hard because it is such an emotional attachment. You've invested so much emotion, you've invested so much anticipation, you've invested so much want in this person or in this
The idea of this
the idea
relationship.
of marriage
Or time.
that it is hard. And then the psychological, we talked about self-worth. Well, if I don't feel that I'm worthy and this is the best I can do, then where am I going to go?
Yeah, there is a lot of people that's like that.
But
Where am I
I
going to
think-
go?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm going to go back to the importance. If you're in a healthy family, then if you were raised in a healthy family, which is why you want, if you're going to get married, begin a healthy raising family so you can start to raise children that are healthy. If you were raised in a healthy family, you would know the signs, or you would have, like you said, that self-worth, that self-love, and that self